The war between Israel and Palestinian militant group Hamas continues with no end in sight. In Gaza, nearly 900 people have been killed so far. 1,200 Israelis have also died since Saturday. These figures have been provided by local authorities on both sides. Meanwhile, an Israeli blockade remains in place, preventing food and fuel from entering the Gaza Strip, which is home to over 2 million Palestinians. Let's discuss this now, get you the latest with Palestinian human rights expert Bassem Eid joins us this morning from East Jerusalem. Bassem, it's great to talk to you. Thank you for joining us in South Africa this morning. The EU is in talks with Israel not to cut off. Yeah, the EU in talks with Israel not to cut off supplies of food and fuel. The US as well, urging humanitarian corridors for residents who are trying to get safe passage. What is the latest on those issues that you can tell us?
Unfortunately, this is what is going on right now. But we must have to understand that such blockade has been imposed on Gaza by the Hamas, not by Israel. While the Hamas entering to inside the southern of Israel, slaughtering children and women and elder people, I think that these are going to be the consequences for such a terror attack which has been imposed by Israel. If the EU want to interfere here, not only to ask Israel to supply the food and the fuel, but in the meantime to tell the Hamas that you should have to be quiet and calm down. I don't think that the Hamas is going to be quiet in these days, and looks like to me that unfortunately we are waiting for so many days for such kind of a horrible war which has been imposed again by the Hamas against Israel.
So, Bassem, we know that these tensions have been boiling over for a very long time. In your opinion, why did Hamas choose this past Saturday to launch that surprise attack?
The Hamas has their own political agenda. The Hamas became clearly, and the Islamic Jihad, as agents for the Iranians like Hezbollah in the north of Israel. So they are the one who put up the maps and the directions how the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad should have to act, and the billions of dollars that the Iranians are throwing on the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad, these are the consequences, and that's exactly an Iranian plan against Israel. It's not between Israel and the Hamas, it's between Israel and Iran. And the question is, who is going to defeat the other?
And I suppose the answer as well, or rather the consequence of this proxy war that you're describing, Bassem, is this massive loss of civilian lives on both sides.
Unfortunately, on each turn of war, the civilians are the victims on the both sides. But to enter to inside houses in the southern of Israel and to slaughter children and women, these are not the principles of the Islam. These are the principles of a terrorist, a barbaric, brutal organization called Hamas. I think that the Islam is completely against what the Hamas is really doing, while they are using what they are doing on behalf of the Islam. I don't think that these people are Muslims. I think that these people almost cause a huge damage to the reputation of the Muslims and the Islam around the world. I don't think that will benefit the Palestinians at all. You know what is really hurting me right now? That there are some thugs and gangsters around the world who call themselves as a pro-Palestinian, celebrating the massacre in Israel. I am a person who believes that if massacres becomes a victory in the 21st century, this is the end of humanity.
And the incredible loss of civilian life on the Israeli side, Bassem, is almost being matched by the incredible loss of civilian life on the side of the Gaza Strip.
Yes, unfortunately, as I told you, the civilians are the victims here. Don't forget also that you have 2 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip became as hostages under the Hamas regime. Hamas using them as a human shield. Hamas protecting his own rockets by using, you know, Gaza be Singapore, but
we do apologize to our viewers. I'm sure you can understand the shaky connection that we have to our guest. Bassem Eid joins us from East Jerusalem now. Bassem, are you still able to hear us this morning? We are struggling to hear you clearly. But what I want to ask you next is, what are the chances of these warring sides getting around a negotiating table? It does seem a very far-off idea on this day 5 of this fighting. It's also complicated by what you've described as this proxy war being fought on the part of Iran through Hamas. At what stage, what needs to happen for talks to take place, if that's possible?
Right now we see that there are some leaders and some countries almost involved in the issue right now, including, of course, the Americans. And I really hope that those leaders and those countries will be able to calm down the situation between Gaza and Israel. And unfortunately, right now we start thinking about the second round, when it's going to happen and what's really going to happen.
Yeah, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is also making his way to Israel. He says to show his support to Israel, but also have to have those discussions around opening humanitarian corridors. Are these kinds of visits helpful at this stage, Bassem, in your opinion?
No doubt that it is a very important visit. I believe that Mr. Blinken will be so strong on his principles to try to calm down the situation and to try in the meantime to save more and more lives on the both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Gaza being described as hell on earth. People, civilians, people raising families, young children, elderly people, women and children being the worst affected by what's unfolding there as this war rages on. Where you are in East Jerusalem this morning, Bassem, what are you seeing from the vantage point where you are?
I think that Palestinians in East Jerusalem a little bit scared on what's going on, and people are more and more scared if this war will become more wide and including the West Bank. In the meantime, people trying, to keep a blind eyes, let's say, on what's really going on. People in East Jerusalem are afraid to go to their work. They have the imagination that might be some Jews will revenge from them. Come to the streets in East Jerusalem, to the roads. It's completely empty, like a curfew has been imposed. And that's really the Palestinians be ended very soon, and I really hope that we can get more and more time of quiet from the Hamas sides towards Israel.
Bassem Eid, let's leave our discussion there. We are struggling with our connection to you, which is understandable. We do apologize to our viewers, and we thank you for your time. Bassem Eid is a Palestinian human rights expert joining us there from East Jerusalem.